meeting to order and have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
How are you doing this morning?
Oh, good, thank you. Hurried.
Do we have any public appearances or anything on Zoom?
I think, would you like me to do roll call? Since I'm
Roll call,
doing
you're
double
right.
duty this morning.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah.
I'm out of
Make
it
sure
now.
you're all present and accounted for. How's that?
Okay. Roll call, we're good.
Yes. President Krischer.
Yes.
Trustee Murphy.
Yes.
Trustee Pardue.
Here.
Trustee Williams.
Here.
Trustee Gorham.
Here.
Excellent. Thank you all.
So give me a chance, give me a break. I'm
It's
still.
a rusty clerk muscle. I'm re-exercising things this morning. So thank you all.
All right. I guess public appearances now? Okay.
Nobody in the public. I don't see anybody on Zoom.
Okay. All right. Any announcements of the trustees? Okay.
Just looking forward to tomorrow's workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully more families can participate this time. We had a conflicting open house at the elementary school, so optimistic.
Yeah, John's recruited some people.
Yeah.
You know, and I
Fantastic.
talked it up at the book room on yesterday, so hopefully we'll get a few more.
The only thing I have to say is I want to thank Susan for running the meeting for me. She just did better than I did today, so.
No, I did the
Better
same
than me.
thing you did.
So get back into it again. All right, thank you again for doing that. I appreciate that. It's kind of hard over there because you can't see anybody. So
Right.
you really don't know if somebody wants to speak or anything like that, so I really appreciate it. All right. The announcement of the library director.
So first, I want to thank whoever's listening, but all of you as well, for your support during the loss of our staff member, Michaela. It was unexpected, and it's been a challenging few weeks for all of us, and we've appreciated the community's support greatly. On a more business side of things, in front of you, you have an actual formal manual. This has gone out in several iterations over the years, but Leslie and I have been working hard over the last year or so to update policies and figure out a new configuration of our library board manual. So that's there for you. And we'll be sending out an electronic version as well, if that's your preference. And then, yes, we are hoping for a great turnout, and it sounds like it, for tomorrow night's workshop. So thank you all.
Thank you. Okay. That's, we have a motion to approve the minutes from April 24th meeting.
I so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, have a roll call.
Marie Claire Gorham,
Yes.
John Krischer,
Yes.
Susan Murphy,
Yes.
Bill Pardue,
Yes.
Mary Jo Williams.
Yes.
It's unanimous. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we'll receive the librarian's report for April.
So, as in past months, I have talked about how our circulation numbers have started to kind of stabilize since the pandemic. We're still divided with the juvenile circulation making up the big bulk of our circ overall. Adult circulation is slowly increasing, but these things are always impacted by, vacation times, holidays, ski breaks, all of that contributes to the little dips, ups and downs between the months that you see. But nothing major of note for the month of April. With the exception of the downtick in electronic checkouts, and that's due to the caps that we put on Hoopla during the month, which did what you'll see from the bills, did what we were intending to do, which is slow that spending for the rest of the fiscal year while we decide what to do about hoopla and canopy in particular. So it did impact our electronic checkouts. How that shakes out in the long term, that'll be something for us to, again, we'll be talking more about that when we look at the budget report.
Did anybody complain?
We did have, for the first week or two, we had a handful of, hey, what happened to the things that I had saved on my wish list? I'm going to read list, I'm going to come back to, things that disappeared. But no major outcry, no angry people coming in shouting at staff, nothing like that. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility. I've worked at a number of libraries. But we didn't have anything like that, and it died down very, very quickly. So it was just a, hey, what happened to this? I don't have access to it anymore. So that's it. Any other questions about the librarian's report?
No, not at all. Okay. We'll receive the treasurer's report.
Thank you. Nothing really major to tell you this time. We're going to go through the budget in much more detail in a few minutes. The amount of interest, as Ashley notes later, continued to be up, but otherwise, and also as you mentioned, the amount of money spent for hoopla and canopy went down slightly, so we're in good shape. We're in the black. Nothing really major to say about that.
Okay.
Any questions?
No, I think, all right. Okay. Let's next receive the monthly report from the Master Plan Ad Hoc Committee.
Mr. President, would you like to have somebody make a motion to adopt the check register?
Yeah, that's right.
I so move.
Yeah, I'm out of today.
It's a really gloomy day.
I second.
All right.
Roll call.
Marie-Claire Gorham.
Yes.
John Krischer.
John?
John?
Yes.
Yes. Susan Murphy.
Yes.
Bill Pardue.
Yes.
Mary Jo Williams.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Now you can go.
Okay. All right.
Ad hoc.
Receive the Ad Hoc Master Plan.
So I've just kind of, with the staff report that's in here, just kind of been adding to it as we've been moving forward, so we can kind of have a timeline of where the committee's been and the activities we've been taking. So in this one, I was hoping to provide an update from last week's workshop. Unfortunately, we didn't have any members of the public show up. We had support, our board members, which is great, and they are library supporters and members of the public, but not quite the same. So big hopes for this Thursday. But that's the thing that I was planning on reporting out, and sadly cannot. So no changes, no major activity on the front of the ad hoc committee at this point in time. Any comments from you, John, or you, Phil, who are members of the ad hoc committee?
No, just looking forward to tomorrow night.
Me too.
Yeah, I kind of reached out to a lot of members of the community and asked why there was no participation in it. And I sort of got back from everybody was, you guys are doing a great job. We have no complaints. We're
Which
happy.
is, yeah,
We're really happy with what's going on. And I said, well, maybe there's some renovation. And several people told me that all we've heard about is painting.
yeah, which is what we've been talking about.
And
at
so I
council.
kind of think that maybe people aren't really aware of what's going on. So,
Agreed.
and I'd like to get it out so we don't have problems down the road. Because
I don't think we will have problems down the road, and this is, by direction of the city council. These workshops were serving to explore library services into the future, so that could be factored into renovations going forward, or RFP for architect, because if we don't know what what we hope for the buildings for the next 50 or 100 years, then, that's critical to any sort of design or thinking process. And as we know, library services are always changing. So I think that will be helpful, and as we move forward with this process, we'll see. We'll be talking more about renovation, but library services are
Yeah.
key understanding of expectations of the community.
I think we can be happy everybody's happy with us.
I mean, that is, yes, that is.
That's- I mean,
And
we have-
often, actually, when I asked people at the book room yesterday, they all said, we like the status quo, we like things the way they are.
Right, and maybe.
We don't want, we don't want it to change.
Yeah, that's what I'm
That's
getting.
basically what you're.
Everybody loves the library, doesn't want
Yeah.
to see it change in any way.
Well, and that's good and an interesting thing, and that makes me feel happy that's a great problem to have. We look for workshops and feedback, and everybody's happy, and that's a good thing. And so that gives us information, which is what we're doing right now at the present time is making people happy, and hopefully will keep happening in perpetuity. But also thinking forward to building design and what other things could we possibly do, or what are we doing now that people might not see behind the scenes? Like if we know that, this music program that we started, this is relatively new for us. We didn't do anything like this before the pandemic in all the years. So what behind the scenes could be helpful for staff in terms of building, like, okay, great, we know that music program is super helpful. We need, movable furniture, this kind of chair, that kind of thing. It seems like status quo information, but it's helpful to staff just the same. So.
While it's good to go through these evolutions and to talk to the public about what they want to go forward, it really is a hypothetical until they see something.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, which is after the foundation has a chance to show something, a mock-up or what it's going to look like, or how it brings in the what the public likes about the library or changes they'd like to make. And at that point, then the public has a chance to say, yeah, this is better, or no, we like it, to do something. So
Yeah.
to be fair, we have a lot of steps before the public gets to weigh in. And
So many steps. These are preliminary steps to say, okay, what are you're happy with the services? That's great. Is there anything else we're missing that you haven't looked at from a different angle? That informs an RFP, that informs, potential designs, that informs more conversations ongoing over the next year or two. So yes, to your point, Phil, this is we're still at the very beginning of any process to think about renovation.
Yep.
Yeah.
That would just, being neutral as, we go through and coming up with something that the public can have a look at.
Mm-hmm.
Because they may say, all right, you're keeping everything we like, but we really like the new design or the improvements that you're planning on make, or they may say, no, we don't like it. But until they actually have something to discuss, it really is a hypothetical.
Exactly, yes.
But
You know.
really, right now, it's not even a hypothetical, it's
No. Right.
just,
But
it's,
you want to have,
what do you like, what don't you like? But it's so broad, excuse me, it's, there's really, we're not even giving them a hypothetical, we're just asking
Right.
very, very generically, what do you like, what could be better? So, yeah, I
Right,
think
yeah.
we'll get a lot more comment as things move on, but
Right.
maybe a while.
It's a good starting point for us.
well, you want to be out front.
Yes.
Right.
You
Yeah.
want to be
And it-
ahead of it. You don't
Yeah.
want like the police station.
Right.
You want
And-
out front completely.
Yeah, and multifaceted. I mean, this helps not only with this, but it helps the staff as we
Mm.
continue to do services.
Yeah.
It's across the board, not only for renovation projects, but how we're operating.
Did you got more money for salary, for hiring somebody else to keep it get it open on weekends?
We still have to work on vacancy, and the council hasn't adopted the
Okay, I saw it in the Pine,
They'll do the budget.
And I don't know, as you know, I don't know believe what's in the Pine Cup, but
Ah.
I saw that.
Yep, ongoing.
Any other comments from this? Anybody? Okay. Okay, we'll move on to the report for the Carmel Public Library Foundation. Alex?
Well, just good morning, Library Board Trustees. Just to echo Ashley's and Phil's remarks, there are many implications regarding the funding of the restoration project. So right now we are in the quiet phase, and CPLF and will work with the library and the city, and has been doing so over the course of the last several months. So, as ready, we will report back to everyone, and there'll be great points of communication and so forth to move forward on. Anyway, I just want to thank everyone who came to our annual event, the Human Edition, with best-selling author Douglas Brinkley and Dave Eggers. It was a huge success. We met our monetary goal. We're still receiving our revenue numbers in, but we're really excited about that. We also had a really wonderful, diverse, and broad demographic, which was great. Lots of students and teachers from various institutions, secondary on up. And we also were able to use the 4 months of robust promotion to promote the library and the foundation in social, print, and radio media. So that was, we kind of ticked all the boxes, and it's really, really great. So thanks for those who came out and for the support. We have engaged 4 new really dynamic board members for the beginning of next year that we're really excited about. And right now we've just continued our work with an eminently qualified architectural historian on the RFP, and the schedule is calling for it to be released following June City Council meeting in order for the project timeline to be met. And that schedule will allow us to continue to raise funds and do what we're doing behind the scenes to continue the process and make it happen on schedule in a timely manner. That's all I have. Does anyone have any questions or anything? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Okay, I guess now we will receive the proposal for the financial budget for 2024 to 25.
And I'm gonna, since I'm doing double duty, last time I tried to present from here, it didn't work so well, so I'm gonna jump up and use the podium as well. So thank you all. I apologize for the lateness of this staff report. With our e-resources, it got very complicated in terms of the work that the ad hoc committee had done since they were appointed. Oh, I seem to be cursed. Okay. So, of note for fiscal year 23-24, we have continued to be on budget or under budget. And to that end, the Board of Trustees approved a series of budget adjustments. In December 2023, this was a $5,000 transfer from reserves to support emergency supplies. And in January 2024, the board approved a series of internal budget adjustments. And with the $5,000, it raised the overall budget, total budget, to $402,900. The income for fiscal year 23-24, again, because of inflation, our LAIF interest rates continue to exceed my estimates. I keep waiting for inflation to come down, recovery from pandemic, and it is very stubborn, as the Fed keeps saying. We keep hoping for cooling, which is good and bad, but for our interest revenue, it's great. There's probably about a $17,000 surplus in interest income. We haven't received the fourth quarter distribution, but we're already well above what was anticipated for last fiscal year. This will offset some of the high costs that we've been seeing for Hoopla and Canopy. Overall, expenditures were on target. Administration is slightly under budget. Equipment and furniture purchases have been some of them have been finalized this spring, and you'll see those coming up in for the May financials. Hard copy materials and tech services spending are on track. Tech services, I want to highlight, was a conversation that came up during our ad hoc committee, and you'll see this when we do the final budget, but I plan to incorporate that in with the hard copy material spending. It's kind of called out on its own in the current budget, but I did factor it in as I was looking at numbers in terms of overall spending, because technical services includes processing for new books coming in, it includes replacement, it includes zip books, all of those things that are either directly hard copy material purchases or supportive of that. So that's on track. And then, of course, e-material spending is projected to be over budget and will be offset by the interest income, and we'll get into later in the staff report the rising costs of Hoopla and Canopy and where we go from there. So for fiscal year 2025, just some of these things I lay out in case we've got new board members, members of the public watching, but we have several sources of income. We have interest income from LAIF, which is the Local Agency Investment Fund through the state. That's money that we invest with them. Relatively low interest rates. It's safe. Nobody can take the money. The state can't come in. Our interest rates, as mentioned earlier, continue to increase. So this is the highest they've been since the recession. They haven't exceeded those recession rates in the mid-aughts, but they seem to keep going up. So I am estimating, again, I usually estimate interest income conservatively between the Bradney Fund and then the just general LAIF interest fund, $33,500 in interest income for next year. For library operations, this fund includes small donations that we get, printing and copying fees, lost and damaged book replacements. Any disbursements that we see from the state will ultimately show up here when they're deposited. I'm estimating $7,000 in operations for next year. Part of the reason why they're lower than anticipated for this fiscal year is we haven't seen the printing and copying fees because we have had computer woes and have been toggling between two printing and copying systems, either by the end of this week or early next week. That should all be sorted out, which is very long overdue, and I thank our IT staff greatly for really working very hard on it all throughout this spring. The Friends of the Library are going like gangbusters with their book sales between the lobby book sales at the Park Branch, the Farmers Market, and the bookstore that they've set up in the book room, so you can donate books, and as soon as you donate books, you can buy more books. A great system. They're doing well, and we weren't sure last year when we had this conversation where things would land without the annual book sale. I'm estimating $22,000 in income from all of these activities altogether. That's a little conservative. It may be above that they give us another couple $1,000s, but they've been doing really, really well. And I thank them for all of their hard work. If you haven't stopped by the book room, you should. It looks great. And last time I was there, I didn't leave without a couple books. So, and then of course, the Carmel Public Library Foundation. Because of our inflation rates and the costs just across the board for performers and books have increased, I did request an increase from the Carmel Public Library Foundation. They're also in the midst of their budget process as well. So when I did this budget, I kept us at the current rate. That's fine. It just meant toggling, and in particular with e-materials, and we'll get there with kind of what my initial methodology was for that. And so that's all of our income for next year. So pretty robust. We're at just at $1,000 more with the adjustment than we were this year. So last year with the $5,000 reserves adjustment, we were at $402,000. With this budget, we're at $403,000, just over that in anticipated income for next year. And now on to expenditures. So for administration, which encompasses finance, library promotion, supplies, and organizational development, there's no substantive changes. I've moved some of the funds that were earmarked for instance, staff training over to supplies. With staff training, we're looking at challenges with travel in terms of, I've got people on staff that have families and kids, and it makes it that much harder. Plus, we're incredibly fortunate. One of the good things to come out of the pandemic is that the state library and other library organizations have really made so many different trainings available online, which makes them that much more accessible so that we can actually do things in-house together and participate that way. For the equipment budget, I'm still waiting on some cost estimates for doing some reconfiguring in the staff workroom at the park branch, but I'm not anticipating a huge increase between now and June in the equipment budget. The proposed IT budget, as compared with last year, has been decreased because I was looking at potential outside IT help, so contract help for us, because the library has, compared to some of the other city departments, unique needs with our public computers, receipt printers, the way that some of our network stuff works. However, the city did hire an additional full-time person that has been able to devote some time to us this spring, again, to mitigate some of the challenges we've been having with public computers and printing issues. So that those funds won't be needed for next year. In addition, we talk about computer replacements, both for staff and public computers. Those replacements are planned citywide for the next few years. Our computers are doing fine. We're up to date. And so I haven't budgeted for replacements this year. If there's something dire that happens and all of our laptops explode, then we'll talk about a budget adjustment, but that is, everybody's operating well, and I'd like to stick to what the IT department has planned, because it makes things easier on them and simpler for staff if it's across the board changes in terms of operating systems. Programs. So our programs continue to be a very popular draw at the library. The kids' library, we have our weekly story times, we have our Friday night activities. This year we collaborated again, this is the second year, with local schools, River School, Tularcitos, for a children's author visit. This continues to help us strengthen ties with our school district and with the kids, and we would like to continue that author visit annually. We even had a chance, a local author, Airlie Anderson, in addition to our big author visit, did an author visit with Stevenson School, so covering all of the schools. And we have a great slate of performers and programs, mix of programs, craft program types of things for summer reading. And then team programming. This has always been a challenge for us. We have a great high school library. The teens are very often very busy with their studies, but we're starting, with the help of our teen librarian, Sierra, to build a following from some of our high schoolers for fun things like Dungeons and Dragons, which has become popular again. We know that chess club is, I think, on the list of things to try out. We have a crochet club and are looking at doing crafting and a teen book club for the summer reading program. And then I mentioned earlier our monthly music program. We found that adults love crafting as much as kids. Who would have thought? Though if you've been to one of our kids programs, you would see some of the parents there enjoying it as much. But as separate from working with kids, those have proven very popular and have been requested. So we'll be doing more crafternoon types of things at the main library. We're also going to be doing a game afternoon coming up during summer reading. So I'd like to continue to support these programs as we go along. Also, a speed painting person is coming. So if you are interested in that, that will be part of the adult summer reading. The local history department continues to collect oral history interviews. There are kind of two ways to do it. We can do mostly audio on our own, but the video formats, I think, really make the difference. And so we work with a videographer to help us with that. Katie and I are pretty smart with that type of equipment, but we're not at that level, and it really helps to have that support. Katie's also been working with the Carmel Foundation and then within the library to hold preservation programs to teach the public about preserving their family treasures and potentially share them with the local history department in the future. So our programming budget as compared to last year is increased and is robust. Hard copy materials. So our circulation for adult materials is getting close to pre-pandemic levels. children's materials have exceeded the pre-pandemic levels, which is wonderful. We've been exploring as the ad hoc committee for e-materials, the factors that could be affecting adult circulation overall, which is it the increase in overdrive, Libby, Hoopla usage that people picked up during the pandemic? Probably part of it is that. Also, the lack of Saturday hours is a big thing. And I think that once we have Saturday hours again, we'll see a bump up in adult circulation. So each year I look at the circulation between hard copy materials and our e-materials and try to make sure that our budget is balanced. So not only within the hard copy circulation of what is circulating, but making sure we're allocating those funds to what is getting used. We are over that 52% of the total circulation for hard copy materials by about 10%. But as we continue to do replacements we're still doing replacements in the nonfiction section for grubby types of books and updating our collections. I feel comfortable with it not exactly balancing out, especially as I feel that we're in a transition year with the e-materials. And then, of course, bumping that number up again to fight inflation. If you look at our budget and some of the adjustments that we did in January, it was the materials processing and our cataloging within that technical services budget that went up. So I want to make sure that those types of things are covered. And now on to the fun bit, e-material usage. And I'll invite Mary Jo and Marie Claire to chime in and stop me if you have thoughts or, because we've been working through this for the last month and a half or so. So Phil.
On the last slide, when you're looking at the total circulation, hard copy, the others, the other thing you have to look at is there's a base amount of hard copy material that you need to have in the library, otherwise people won't show up.
Right.
So if you ever get too out of balance, then you have to question why you have a library.
Right.
At all. And so I'm not sure that that's the best metric, is all I'm saying. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but as e-books come down, e-materials come down,
right,
you're going to see the proportion change. And then you also have that base level of material that you must have.
Right.
Otherwise, you're not a library, you're now something else. So anyway,
yes.
That's my only comment.
Thank you, yes. And that definitely is, spending, yes, we should be spending in alignment with circulation, but yeah, base level, what our collections look like. So when you walk in the library, I think we have established, for our building, without overflow excess, we can't cram anything else on the shelves, which means we can't buy anything new because there's no room anymore. I think we've reached a pretty good balance, and we're usually between 40 and 50,000 items at any given time in the year.
And do you think that you have the right mix of that 40 to 50,000 items? Because you curate it on what comes
right,
in and what doesn't. Do you have the adequate funding to make sure that that 40 to 50,000 items matches what you need?
I would say so, based on our circulation statistics and the fact that we're starting before the pandemic. We were looking at other libraries and trends across the country where libraries were seeing a decrease in circulation. I've talked about this before, and an increase in program attendance. At the time, we were seeing an increase in circulation and an increase in program attendance, and we're continuing to see the same things, which I think would indicate that the community is having their needs met through the curation we're doing of our collection.
So when you're doing the curation, do you track which books never get checked out?
Yes, we do, through our weeding process. We also track things like with zip books, we have a tag on them. So if we get a request or a patron request, we keep tabs on those so that we know if there's something underground in the community, we know what's happening. Like, okay, we should pay attention to whatever this new obsession is with Bridgerton. I know we're all obsessed with Bridgerton, but you know what I mean. Like, oh, who knew about this series? That kind of thing. Yes, we're paying attention to those.
And so you can take that information that you glean from the zip books,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can just start having those as permanent collections, or you sometimes takes the zip books and pull them into the library?
We do pull them into the library. So just about, I think we did statistics on those, and it was between 95 and 98% we end up keeping with zip books. And that was when we started the program, which is, we want to meet everybody's needs, but so it's an effective way to supplement the collection and some of the curation that the staff are doing.
Right, and that was one of the discussions we had when we started the zip books, was it was a way for the community to help self-curate
Right.
the collection at the library.
And it's been very effective.
Okay.
I have a question. Is there any way to figure out when people go to the programs, are they checking out books afterward? Or is there more circulation after the programs? I would assume, but
We haven't been tracking that, but I'm sure that there's a way that we could.
that's a possibility.
For children's programs, just anecdotally and being in that department, I can tell you, heck yeah. Every one of those parents and families leave with a stack this high. Adult is a little bit different, but yes, for the families, everybody's leaving with a stack of books.
So I know we're going to talk about ebooks next. I'll just put the question in here, and then it may be better to answer in the future. So we talked about the zip books helping the curation. Does the same thing happen with the ebooks? Are people getting the ebooks because we don't have them in circulation? I mean, in our physical copies, or are they doing it for convenience? And if they're doing it because, and it's for convenience if you have duplicates. We have it.
Right.
The book on the shelf here is not checked out, but it's checked out ebooks. But if people are checking out and you don't have it in your collection, is there any way to see that? And would that be a sign that maybe you need to look at how you change the curation of our collection?
Right. So the answer to that is no, we're not tracking whether or not when people submit purchase suggestions through Overdrive in particular, whether or not it's because their need is not being met through the physical collection or they just prefer electronic. We can ask those questions going forward, but for Overdrive purchasing, purchase suggestions, it works just the same. So my assumption would be, because you're on Overdrive already and that's what you're using, that's the format that you want it in. You're not going to an alternate format because you didn't get a hard copy of it. You could go through the hard copy purchase suggestion. There's 2 avenues for it. So we could have rejected someone's purchase suggestion because we couldn't get a copy of an out of print book because it would cost $100 in its genealogy, but maybe we can get it cheaper on Overdrive. Yes, maybe, but without doing extensive surveying of people using Overdrive and why did you request it through Overdrive. I don't have that data.
Okay.
I know our book group, a lot of them prefer ebooks to listen to the book rather than read it. I have another question, which I could probably just ask you. I came into the library the other day and they didn't have the book I wanted, and they said they were going to order it. Mm-hmm. And they never took my name or anything else, or maybe she knew me.
I think we know you.
That's probably.
You're the book lady, even if you weren't wearing your
and
sweatshirt.
I had book lady on my.
There you go. So yes, we knew who you were.
I was just curious.
As soon as it's available, we'll send you an email.
Well, actually, I do remember though when we met with Aubrey, and I don't know that this exactly answers your question, but she was able to, you do it particularly with Overdrive, you're able to track which titles are most in demand and add more copies
Just
or more
like, yes.
access.
Right.
So there is a way, I think, of tracking what books are being requested electronically or,
Right.
versus, I just don't know that we've done the comparison or that they have.
And that's just that's the same exact way that we would do hard copy materials.
Right.
So you may have people who are we might see, a James Patterson book purchase suggestion soaring in both platforms, and that's because I prefer electronic, I prefer audio,
Yeah.
I want hard copy, I want my CDs. So it's across the board. not necessarily I can't get it from one place to another, but we can still explore that and see, you know, how come you moved over to Overdrive? Was it preference, or you just couldn't get a print copy, or you were tired of the hold list there, or what's the reason? All right, so as we all know and we've been discussing, e-materials are complicated. They provide levels of access that, you know, hard copy can't sometimes. But in particular for Hoopla and Canopy, our costs continue to increase. And, you know, at the start of the new year, there was a particularly eye-opening jump in expenses. I will say it's an interesting and good problem to have that we have tons of people using our library and our services. And I just wanted to put in here a reminder of what those services are. So we've got the Overdrive Libby app, and that is part of our partnership with the Northern California Digital Library Consortium. They purchase a base level of books. That's cooperative purchasing all throughout the Bay Area down to the Central Coast. Those titles are accessible to all member libraries and their patrons. And then we have the ability to purchase additional licenses for ebooks, audios, above and beyond those titles. So, for instance, if there's something that is very popular and has a long list of holds, we can purchase titles that will be available to Carmel Public Library patrons first, so they will bump to the top of the list. And then once our holds list is exceeded, will be shared back with the rest of the consortium. We also have the Palace app, which we've been underutilizing. This integrates Overdrive holdings with public domain and other free titles throughout the state. So it's every single book in electronic format that libraries have who have opted into the Palace's app, sharing these titles. And this is an effort to support equitable digital content access. Before the pandemic, I had brought a couple of staff reports to the Board of Trustees about some of the things that publishers were doing in terms of embargoing titles, the cost of licenses, all of that. And so this is a movement to kind of counter some of those things by doing what libraries do best, which is sharing resources. And the state of California is not unique to this. The Palace app launched in the state of New York and has been adopted by several other states throughout the US. And then we come to Canopy and Hoopla. So Canopy, of course, offers movies and TV streaming, while Hoopla provides ebooks, audiobooks, video, music, and both of these are pay-per-use basis. Audiobooks, of course, are the most popular on Hoopla, just edging out ebooks. So with evaluating Hoopla and Canopy, staff in the ad hoc committee did a deep dive. We looked at how other libraries are using Hoopla and Canopy, who has what. I talked to our local library partners and how they were using these types of services. We found that a number of libraries, if they haven't already, were in the same position we are, which is struggling to continue to meet the increasing demand for Hoopla and Canopy as resources. Some libraries, like I'll use Salinas Public Library as an example, they took Hoopla and they explored content curation, and they limited it to their holdings to audiobooks only. They found people weren't checking out their audio CDs, but that they did want audio content, and that's the best way that they could serve their patrons. Right now, when we looked at content curation within Hoopla, so okay, maybe we go all audio, or maybe we get rid of access to TV, movies, music, all of those extra things that really aren't being used. Would that make much of a dent in our monthly billing? It wouldn't. One of the biggest challenges with Hoopla and Canopy is that we are seeing an increased number of users month over month. So truly the only way to reduce costs or to control costs in any way for these services is to implement a hard monthly cap. and this was something that the library had done when we first launched these services. We weren't sure where they were going to go. Canopy, I think we adopted in 2016, Hoopla, maybe 2015, 2014. We had monthly caps for those, for our budget. So you couldn't go over $1,000 a month. And what that means is once we hit that cap, that means no one else can check anything else out until the next month resets and it's the first of the month. That is a way to curb those costs. Is it great? You know, we could have people starting off the month and they do all of their however many we allot checkouts for that month, and someone comes along on the 15th because they're going on a road trip and they can't because we've reached their monthly cap. So they've done nothing wrong. But that is really and truly the only way for us to have a hard monthly cap is to keep those costs down. Outside of discontinuing using Hoopla and Canopy entirely.
So on the Hoopla, I just want to make sure I understood. On Hoopla, the ebooks slightly edge out. I'm sorry, the audiobooks slightly edge out the ebooks.
Yes.
So there would be no savings if you just said you're not doing ebooks. You can only do audiobooks.
With ebooks, there would probably be some savings, but again, we keep increasing the number of users per month. So while we might see if you cut out ebooks right now, and we did only solely audios, just like Salinas Public Library, eventually we're going to catch up with ourselves because of those increases in patrons, and the costs will continue to increase over time.
So
that makes sense.
So if you have 55 people coming in and you have 20, or you say 30 that are doing the audiobooks and 25 for the ebooks, you're going to lose 25 a year plus all the ebooks folks that you already have. So you would expect to see a decrease initially because the ebook readers are not going to be satisfied. So you'd go back down. My concern is that we do have a segment of the population who may have sight impairments or things like that. So if you have, does Overdrive have ebooks also? Or?
It has ebooks and audiobooks. So we've got two avenues for that. In addition, Palaces, we can also purchase audiobook licenses, and audiobooks are available through Palaces.
Okay, so if we did away with Hoopla, the sight impaired would still have an option to go get the books on Overdrive.
That's correct.
So we'd still be providing that service. Okay.
Yep.
Is there any way to let people know that this costs more than the regular book? Because I'm amazed at the number of people who don't realize when they order books on Hoopla or whatever, that they cost us more than a regular book would.
I mean, potentially, but I'm not sure to what end. I mean, I don't want to discourage people from taking books out. And again, I've never figured out.
But I'm amazed at the number of people who don't realize this.
Well, I don't know that math is exactly right though, because it's the per use cost isn't all that high.
It's not, and
so for one person, one book, that's not the problem. It's a cumulative.
Yeah.
And then the idea that a hard book potentially could be read 100 times, right? Where you're paying
or 2 times.
or 2 times. So
right.
It really is hard to say that.
Right.
So I don't know that we can say that, but it's a cumulative cost.
But as I say, I'm amazed at the number of people
Yeah.
3x.
that don't know.
If you put like a cap on cost, then the word gets out that everybody knows they want to check a book out, they better get in the first part of the month and check everything they want to check out. And then
we used to see that. I mean, that was, people were in, and even with when we had during the pandemic, we had cap on the number of zip books you could order because we were cognizant of the budget then, and the first or the second of every month, everybody had their zip books orders in during the pandemic. They were serious about it. That was on their calendar and on their schedule. So I would imagine we would see the exact same thing if we went back to that method of having a hard monthly cap for Hoopla and Canopy.
To go back to what Phil was saying, my concern with the cap is a lot of older folks use the audio because of their input. And when you get up in age, you don't really think the first of the month to go do this, where a younger person is going to jump right in there and go at it. So I just see a lot of faults with the cap. in my own opinion. But
Well,
I'm only one person.
I think we're openly considering the simplicity of
Yeah.
Yeah.
possibly just letting go of those services,
Yeah, I
especially
think-
since we wouldn't be leading that charge. It seems
Yeah.
to be a very commonplace decision given the circumstances,
Right.
amidst other libraries.
Right.
I
So
think
let-
and
Ashley's
in our
got
region.
3 options for
Yes.
us to
Yeah,
look
yeah,
at,
I've-
not just the cap.
yeah. So
Correct.
yeah. So that is
Maybe let
that.
it go through those.
Yeah,
and
that
then
is
we
an
can-
option. So option one is to continue on like we're continuing on, and to try to keep including Hoopla and Canopy as they stand now, reconfigure the budget to meet those needs, in the future potentially. And I kind of took this to its extreme conclusion, which is we're looking at, hey, we're halfway through the year, can we have reserve money for this, or we're taking program money away, or we're asking the CPLF for more money. These are not really recommended options for how we want to run our budget. This isn't how we've done things. We're always very cognizant of, we're under budget to a fault. So this isn't something that the ad hoc committee and staff recommend trying to do, just continuing on as we are. Option two is kind of a middle ground option, which is to begin to phase out Hoopla and Canopy over the next year or so, and that's by instituting monthly caps and shifting some of those funds over to ebook spending, and that can be put towards, Overdrive and Libby and Palace. The phased approach, helps us do some patron outreach to explain to them why these will be going away. Again, looking at other libraries over the country, throughout the country, they have instituted these types of caps as they begin to ease on this kind of spending. With Overdrive and Palace, it is the spending there is easier to control than Hoopla and Canopy. Hoopla and Canopy are variable. It's based on what people are doing that month. With the Overdrive and Palace, it's very similar to our hard copy spending. We're being responsive to purchase suggestions. We're paying attention to bestseller lists. We're reading library journal. We're doing our content curation. All of those things just apply to the virtual world in this instance. And when I was doing our ordering sections, I had a monthly, kind of set amount that I would work on spending for. I was the DVD person, buying all of our Father Brown Anglophile DVDs. So I was, very paying attention to what was happening, but also making sure we had new content coming in. And this will give us time to also explore Palace, which we opted into. There was state grant funding, not this last fall, but the fall before, to adopt these things, understanding, again, the continuing conversation about the challenges with publishers, their embargoes, and what steps libraries can take to combat some of that. And of course, cooperative sharing of resources is one of those things. The one thing I will note with Palace is that's different than Overdrive is that we can purchase Amazon titles through those. So ebooks and audiobooks. In particular, with audiobooks, this is a big deal because Amazon will embargo those books. We can't get them for months, sometimes a year out. So if there's a title that a patron wants, we can't get it. We can't get it in a CD form. We can't get it any way. It's exclusive to Audible. But through Palaces, we will have access to that. So I think it would be good when we talk about meeting patron needs, making sure that we're, to the best that we can do, responding to purchase suggestions. This is another avenue for us to do that. And, I would think that either this option or option three for discussion, which is option three is to discontinue Hoopla for fiscal year 24-25 and to ship all of the funds that we had earmarked for Hoopla and Canopy last year with relation to circulation into the overall ebook fund, which would continue to support Overdrive purchases, but also Palace purchases in the future for Amazon content and any other licensed content that's available through Palace. And I'll answer any questions with that. and please comment, Mary Jo and
I will, thank
Marie
you.
Claire.
A couple things, but I thought we had also at least played with the idea of a fourth option, which was continuing Canopy for movies, but discontinuing Hoopla.
Yes, so we did talk about that, but one of the things we found with Hoopla is the unique users the number of unique users as compared with unique users for, and that's another thing to consider is how much per patron per year are we paying for services? So like there are certain database services, we do that analysis every year. But yes, that is a potential, which is we discontinue Hoopla, which is the biggest cost, and keep Canopy around. I can tell you that Canopy, we talked about this at our ad hoc committee meeting, the biggest circulating things are BBC.
Yeah.
And so is there an alternate way that we can get that content to our patrons rather than going through Canopy? And we haven't found that avenue yet. So option 4, yes, thank you, Mary Jo.
Well, I think that the thing about Hoopla, they offer ebooks, audiobooks, TV, movies, music, comic books. And when we looked at it, we have so much duplication for ebook and audiobooks. I mean, we have Overdrive,
Right.
so that's total duplication. And then we have Palaces, which, as you said, we haven't promoted or really utilized, but again, it's there and it's much, much cheaper and much easier to manage. So to me, that's kind of a no-brainer. We're not taking anything away from anyone because we have just as good, if not maybe possibly better, service with Overdrive. And the comics, there's a different comic app.
We have Comic Plus, yes.
There's music, which is really underutilized, and as Ashley reminded us, we don't offer music in the library anyway. It's not like, an option to come in and check out CDs of music. It's not a service we've ever provided.
We've never,
So that leaves the movies and TV. And the only option we would have for those would be to continue Canopy. And I'm not necessarily advocating for it, but I'm just thinking about, the idea of taking away something from somebody. I'm not so worried about the ebook and audiobook if we do our due diligence in terms of communication. Like, this is super expensive, but we're going to put more money into these others, and you'll have, you should have just an equal experience. You just have to use Libby instead of Hoopla, or close.
Right,
close
and well,
enough.
and championing purchase suggestions as well. I was just talking to my uncle at Easter, and he's like, I can't get this book on Overdrive through my library. And I'm like, did you put in a purchase suggestion? And he's like, no. Like, put in a purchase suggestion.
Yeah, so I think that's, and when the other thing that we learned was many libraries have already discontinued Hoopla completely because the cost is so high. So we would be in good company. The New York Public Library just couldn't do it. It's too much money. And so I think, and that feels okay to me because we're not taking anything away, as I said. We're just encouraging people to use the other resources. The movies and TV, I don't know. That to me could feel like a big takeaway to your Anglophiles, but maybe not. I don't know.
How much would option 4, what would that cost?
Option 4, well, for Canopy, at the rate that we're at, I think I budgeted $17,000 for last year. We're going to exceed that, and we'll probably be at about $22,000. I would budget above that for next fiscal year.
But isn't that without any caps?
That's without any caps. So we could
there
put.
is a way to cap it as well.
Yes.
Back to that. Aubrey explained it to us, and
It's much more complicated than Hoopla. Hoopla, you pay, it's the dollar amount attached to the use. With Canopy, it's tickets. So one movie might be 5 tickets, and another episode of a TV show is 1 ticket, and you get so many tickets a month. They changed their
And that's
model.
tickets per person, or?
Tickets per person. So you 16 tickets per person. You could either check out 16 items, depending on what the items are, or 3.
And it's a scale
How many tickets?
for
Yeah,
tickets in terms of what it costs to
Right.
Because
rent
most
an
people
item.
know that.
Correct.
They can.
so it could be
It's an option.
25,000, or it could be less if we capped it.
Yeah.
The number of
There's
tickets.
a way to control that cost to a degree.
And from the ad hoc committee, do you all recommend
that's what I
ripping the
wanna know.
Band-Aid off immediately and just say, all right, we're cutting you off? Or do you all, the two of you, prefer the phase-out method?
I personally, I would just do option 4, because I think phasing it out doesn't really, the only advantage, I guess, is it gives time. It gives us time to tell people and educate them how to move from Hoopla to these other services. And I don't know that we're ready actually to promote Palaces at this moment, if we've got all the
Not
things in
necessarily.
place.
Right.
So option 2 is a nice bridge option if we think we need a year. to
I wouldn't
educate
even,
and
I would say you
prep?
could probably take the next 6 months and say we're sunsetting these services at the end of the calendar year,
Yeah.
new year, jump into Palaces and Overdrive, and that gives
So I
us
guess that's
time.
option 5, but.
New option.
Well,
But-
it's a modification to
Yeah.
option, well,
I
yeah,
know,
no,
I'm
it is an
teasing, I'm
option
teasing,
5.
yes, sorry.
Yeah.
No, that's.
Excellent use of sunset, though.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
No, I would echo Mary Jo, and I would say that there's something to the fact that like, the longer we looked at this problem together, and the more we learned from Aubrey, especially, I think we landed on that. There's a chronology to these options that happened naturally. The longer we looked at it, the more like option 3 is the last one we're coming to as we have the most information.
Right.
And so I would say that kind of
My thing is,
felt like a conclusion.
we're fiscally responsible for the library.
Correct.
So our decisions we make are what's best for the library.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, in the service of patrons, but we have a set budget.
Sustainability.
So I think our decision has to be made is what's best to keep us within the budget.
Mm-hmm.
And you two have did a great job with Ashley on giving us our decisions.
Yeah.
So I
Well, I
guess,
think it's to be fiscally responsible, but also to be responsive to what people need,
yeah,
right?
I
So,
understand.
and I think I feel much more comfortable now,
Right.
understanding how Overdrive and
Mhm.
Palaces should fill the need,
Mhm.
right? There really isn't much that Hoopla offers that we can't get somewhere else, and it's by far
Correct.
the most expensive
Right.
of all the
So
services. So.
if we would go with 2, 2, the keeping for a while, putting
Oh,
hard
yeah,
cap.
phase it out.
Putting a hard
phase it
cap
out,
on
okay.
it.
Option
Okay.
sunset.
Yeah.
All right. What is that going to do to our budget? Because we're relying
That was
right
my
now
concern as
on
well.
interest rates keeping the same to make
Yes.
everything work,
Mhm.
which may not go. So what is the best?
So I can answer that question. So for the budget that you have in front of you, I did pull out, I think, the audio or the e-materials specifically, so you could see the cost of Hoopla and Canopy pulled out. What I proposed in this budget was based on option 3.
Okay.
Put this in the staff report. So what I would do, and that was folding in all of the funds that we had put towards Canopy and Hoopla into that ebooks fund. What I would do is pull some of those funds out. I would pull out Canopy funds from that. It's $85,000, and budget for next year, so $23,000, and a half a year's worth of Hoopla at the current rate we're at with the $1.99 cap for the next 6 months for Hoopla. So Canopy ongoing, but the funds are there. I just moved them around in terms of audio. So the increase for the ebook purchasing, audiobook purchasing for Palace and for Overdrive is there. So we're still seeing an increase there, but we're transitioning out. So we won't need a major increase over and above where we're at this point in time.
So
So-
the budget is from July 1st to July 1st,
Right.
right? Yeah.
June 30th, yes.
June 30th, yeah. I think 7 months, because we're talking about it now,
Mm-hmm.
is pretty darn generous for a phase out. I would think that if we're making a decision today, or we can, to the public, if it was just by the end of the first fiscal quarter,
September, yeah.
phase out, September 30th, that's 4 months to do the phase out, and then, which is plenty of time. Especially if you start, I don't know how we're gonna do it, if it's, you can tell people and publicize it, but not everybody internalizes it or reads it. But if they
Right.
start seeing a decrease in the number of things they can check out,
Right.
and they start asking the question, then you have that
We
less
have the-
teeth gnashing at the
Right, we
end
can
of
pull out
4
our
months.
talking points and say, this is why,
Right.
and here's where you can access those types of materials in other places.
So, I think the end of
sounds
the first
really
quarter.
good.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's-
Sounds much better,
It's
yeah.
lovely.
I think it's really, to me, that's kind of how fast you think the library staff actually could communicate it and,
We can do
Prep all
that.
that stuff.
We can
Yeah.
do that, yeah.
Yeah.
September 30th for a phase out, so that's what would be budgeted for Hoopla. Canopy, we would continue on through the year. Is that what I'm hearing from the group? Yes?
So is this something we need to vote on today?
Yes, let's about this.
No, this is just direction for me so that I can come back to you with the budget again in June for adoption.
Right. Just, so I think that we're in agreement that it's the option 2, which is the phase out, with the phase out ending at the end of the first quarter of the 2025 fiscal year, with the exception that we're going to keep Canopy and discontinue Hoopla.
Yes.
And then we will address, that'd be the first of the year, how Canopy looks. And then we can make a decision
Yeah.
on
We
towards
can
next
cap
year.
the ticket.
Yeah, we'll continue
Yeah,
to.
whether we, even with the cap, whether we can keep
Yes.
Canopy
Yeah,
going.
so the first of the calendar year,
First accounting.
January, we'll revisit.
First,
I will
revisit.
say that, and I think that's right. The numbers of people that use Canopy is pretty small relative to the cost.
That was
That's
the shocking number that we
Only other
found.
thing I think we need to tell
Yeah.
all of you,
Yeah.
just full disclosure, it's not very many people who use it.
Right, our unique
And the
users.
cost per person or per patron is actually pretty high.
It was
However,
$60
it's just,
for
I
patrons, yeah.
think we should do that, but then continue to look at the usage and get reports,
Right.
and then decide if we want to lower the access to it.
So,
you
so the way and I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
I think that the way I look at it is that the library performed a service where you could go in, you could check the CDs out, or the DVDs, sorry,
Yeah.
DVDs out and things like that. So we have this ebook and audio book that replicates things that we have in the library. So if we have people that are we're always going to have people, because it's convenient, are going to do that. But we also have a segment of our population that just can't get to the library.
Right.
So how do we best serve those? And then you kind of take, all right, so we're going to have people that are just doing it because it's easy. Okay,
Yeah.
that's just the cost of doing business
Right.
until we can't afford that cost anymore.
Right.
Right.
I just
It's
wanted
my
to say,
thought,
because
my-
that was, on the budget, it doesn't look like it's that much money, but when you do look
Oh,
at
yeah.
the utilization, it's kind of,
Right.
okay, but it is the only way right now to allow
Electronically.
access to those DVD
Right.
equivalents, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Everybody else has come to the conclusion they can't afford it. We're
a
not
lot
the
of
only-
libraries have,
yeah,
or
we're not the
they've
only one.
limited it,
And
yeah,
even-
not at all,
yeah. It's just something that cannot,
Not at all.
it's unsustainable.
yeah.
Didn't you say that Canopy use is going up?
But much slower compared to Hoopla. Hoopla is,
That's what I was.
50,
Prohibitive, yeah.
sometimes, I think last month, even though we had a decrease in costs, I think we had new users to the tune of 98 people coming, so a huge jump from that 55. I would have thought that would have dipped, so I was quite shocked when I was looking at that early this week. But again, yes, what a problem to have. People want to use our resources.
Yeah,
and if we ever got to the point where we couldn't afford Canopy, I submit that we should have a way of how do we help the people within our community
Right.
that can't get to the library? Do they
Yeah.
now call in and reserve a physical hard copy of the CD, or
Right, yes.
we deliver it to their house? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, that would be
If we ever get
outreach.
to that point.
Yeah, relaunching our outreach program. That would, yeah. be a problem. Okay, thank you all very much for this good direction, and I will be returning back with the hopefully final budget in June for adoption.
that's good.
Oh, thank you too for a really good job on that. You did great.
And we also have the elections in June for the
Yeah.
officers.
Yes, we will have the elections of officers in June. And if you haven't gotten notification, I believe there's ethics training coming up very soon as well.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got one thing I'd like to say before we leave. This is, we're talking about the restoration of the library. And I would put forth to you, I think we should talk about putting a committee of people together to look at options if we had to move the library. Look at some options, buildings, maybe form a committee to work with staff to find out how big of a building we would need, if there's anything available in here, and what cost would be. So we would have, with everything moving forward, we're doing a really good job, and I want the public to know that we're thinking way ahead. That's probably a little bit off today because I've been thinking about this in my mind, and I've been talking this over with Ash. This is my own thoughts that maybe we should try to form a committee and say, this is what we need. This is maybe look in the town, see if there's anything available. And I don't know what the cost would be, I don't know how much space would be needed, but to work with staff to say, okay, this is what we're gonna have to have. And then when we go further in the process that we're doing, we can go to the public and say, we're on it.
Right.
We're working on everything. And my thoughts are, you two have did such a fantastic job with this, to put you two on that and let you come back, you know, maybe in August with some rough ideas on what, because I want to make sure that if we go through this process, that we're caring about the public.
Yeah.
And we want to really make sure that, you know, the first thing people are going to say is, well, what about what's going to happen in the library if we do something? And it's going to get out in the public. I know things are quiet now, but once it goes to council and they approve it, it'll get the pine cone. And I think we should really be ahead of the game of what's going on. And if you two think, I'll talk to Ashley later about it, but this is my own mind now. I've been thinking about it in my walks, that you guys did a great job on this. I've read everything over and I appreciate what you've done. And I think to look at, there's an awful lot of aspects going on. We'd have to have a building with the right kind of inner structure to handle what we have. There's going to be, I don't want to have any staff member think that their job's going to be in jeopardy if we move somewhere. I want to make sure that they feel safe and the public's going to be taken care of. I'm all new at this. This is my idea, and this is probably a little off today because my mind has been going with this and how to say this, because I think it's we have a big responsibility.
Well, the one thing I would like to say, first of all, because we should have said it before, we did do a good job, but the hard work was done by the library staff.
Yeah, well, I was going to say,
Aubrey and Rachel, right?
Yes, they did a wonderful job.
Fantastic job
Yeah.
at doing the deep dive and giving us the information that we needed that really made it clear. And I say that because we need to thank them, but also because I think I hear what you're saying, but I don't know who our expert in this might be.
Yeah, that's what I don't know either.
And I think that might be worth thinking about. Like, is
That's-
there somebody who in the you know, city government of any that has
Yeah.
some sort of space? I mean,
That's
I wouldn't
what
even know
my-
where
So
to
I think we're getting a little off
Ahead
of
of
Brown
ourselves,
Act
yeah.
and check. So what I would
Yeah.
like to do
Okay.
is,
All
thank
right.
you, John, I'd like to agendize something on this topic for next
Okay, good.
Yeah.
month so that we can look at that as a group and potentially appoint an ad hoc committee for further study.
I just wanted to get it out there.
Yeah, perfect.
And
Got
get-
the ball rolling.
and I want to just get ahead of the project.
Yes.
Right. So for the June meeting, I've got the budget adoption, elections of officers, and then a discussion about ad hoc committee for,
Okay.
you know, alternate spaces for library if needed, if we go forward.
Well, that's why I just
Great.
brought it up,
Yeah.
because to put a future agenda.
Yeah, we can't start that soon enough.
Good, thank you.
Anything else?
No?
I guess we can adjourn. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Because when Sunset closed, they had to go to Pacific Grove to find a spot.
So what do you think about looking at something?
Sure.